All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today we're going to be looking at Oklahoma and Baylor. They will square off noon Eastern Time on Fox on Saturday in Waco. 5.5-point spread in favor of the Sooners. 62.5-point spread. Oklahoma, a one-sided series for the entirety of history, really. 28-3 all time. They had some success in 13 and 14. And then, RG3 in 2011, they won their first game over Oklahoma ever. Sooners, though, they've won 7 in a row since then. Small success for Baylor. They won 3 out of 4. So all 3 wins came in over a 4-year stretch. Other than that, Oklahoma's dominated. Looking at the Oklahoma offense, it's been a new look unit since Caleb Williams took over. Extra dimension of his legs. What he does compared to what Spencer was doing. Williams, he rolls out. He can make great throws on the run. Throw with precision while he's on the move. It's very impressive what I've seen from him so far. The decision-making has also been heavily improved. Only 1 pick so far for Williams. He's a dual-threat guy. They like to get him involved with his legs, but right now he's really shining as a passer. Accuracy, locating guys, and matchups, taking advantage of them. For a true freshman that came in halfway through the season, very impressive for Williams. This guy is legit a future star. The offensive line, there's still a bit of an issue, though. They ran for 200-plus yards in 3 straight games. They've really got it going on the ground. Only 70 last week against Texas Tech. They kind of got stonewalled. Pass protection's been a little iffy at times. Overall, generating a push against the run, it's not been easy. Yeah, they did it against Texas very well. Not a good run defense they were playing, though. Nice little stretch afterwards. Other than that, you don't really know what kind of Sooners offensive line you're going to get. So you're just going to expect average play, nothing too bad, nothing too great. 50% on third downs this year, Oklahoma. That's probably the best part of their offense. Kennedy Brooks at running back, he is very elusive. He's got some nice speed. He loves to break tackles. He's on pace for another 1,000-yard season. Eric Gravely hasn't played a big role this year. It's kind of expected. We also expected Brooks to have more production as well, though, so the whole running game has been kind of depleted this year. I just told you about the stretch they had, but overall it's not been typical OU offense. Back when they had Jalen Hurts, they're averaging 250 yards a game, and the running backs were a big part of that. Nothing like that going on this year for Oklahoma. Very deep at receiver, though. Marvin Mims, he was not getting a lot of touches with Rattler at quarterback. That's been different with Williams. He's been really getting him involved. Jaden Hazelwood, seeing an uptick in production. Mike Woods, he's a burner himself. Mario Williams, you knew when Theo Weiss went down, he was going to be, as a true freshman, a very impactful player for them. He's done a lot of work out of the slot. Smaller guy. I like him. This overall, the depth they have at receiver is phenomenal. 2 good running backs. How the offensive line play, though, is really going to be the full story for this offense. However they play will shape up how the Sooners play. But right now, very good balance. Caleb Williams has took charge with ease. So let's move to the Baylor offense. The Bears, coming into the year, I picked them to win 5 games because I wasn't sure what we would get from this offense. I expected big things from their defense. I thought they'd probably even be the best in the conference, and they've played very well on both sides. Offense, phenomenal. What they've done, very impressive. Gary Bohannon's been effective, very efficient as a downfield passer, too. They've progressed immensely with 2 great receivers in R.J. Sneed, Tyquan Thornton, smaller guys who are big playmakers. Thornton, he has great hands. One of my favorite receivers to watch. Baylor is a very good balanced attack, too, though. They have this running game that's been very electric. Early in the year, they shined versus nobody. The question was, could they keep that up? And I think they have really answered the call. 231 yards per game. Abraham Smith is over 1,000 yards on the year for 11 touchdowns. Him and Tristan Ebner, they're both bigger backs, both 215-plus. Ebner, 600-plus yards. He's all-around. He can do everything as an all-around, all-purpose player. He had the kick return touchdown against Iowa State early in the year. He makes plays on special teams as a receiver, runner. You're going to see a lot of him in this game. Back to Bohannon, though. 6 games to start the year of no picks, and then he's had 5 in the last 3. I didn't watch the game last week, but, he threw a game. I did see that he threw a pick late in the game on that final drive when they were in scoring position, and I think they're inside the 30 or the 40, something like that, but they were threatening, and he threw a pick. I know against BYU, the first pick of the year came in the red zone, so his decision-making still just trending backwards just a little bit. Not too many. I'm not too worried about it, though. Overall, he's been a very good player for them. Can't really have asked more from this Baylor offense what we've gotten this year because it was just dreadful last year. Dave Aranda and group, they have done a great job with this offense. So I think that they have great balance, when they're playing lesser skilled defenses like the one they're going to face against Oklahoma. This team's going to have a lot of success. They ran it all over BYU, ran it and threw it all over BYU. Back-to-back games they had with 500-plus yards. The only games they've really been kind of stonewalled on offense were Iowa State and Oklahoma State. They're not playing a defense like that on Saturday. The balance, though, all year has really shined for Baylor. So I think this offense has a very favorable matchup, especially being at home. That matchup they have comes against this Sooner defense that they've been pretty good against the run this year. I think, they've given up 100-plus in 5 straight games, but they have not allowed over 5 yards per carry in a single contest or 200-plus yards all year. Deep defensive line. Perion Winfrey's having a good year. Nick Coe, Isaiah Thomas. Take your pick. Nick Benito off the edge as a pass rusher. Take your pick of whoever you want. These guys are pretty deep. I think it's the best defensive line rotation that Lincoln Riley's ever had. And I think they're doing their part for the most part, other than the pass rush has been a little lackluster. They had 4 sacks against Texas. Other than that, they've really been inconsistent and kind of just not showing up like they should, especially having Benito. They need to get some more pressure on the quarterbacks. Only 2 sacks over the past 3 games. That's concerning. They got to get to the quarterback, especially here against Baylor, because they got guys who can beat you downfield. And they're playing a secondary. It's been pretty brutal. Coming in the year, we knew that this defense was going to have some issues in the secondary with the inexperience they had. They lost 2 corners in Brown and Norwood. 114th in yards per game in the secondary allowed. They only have 5 INTs, the lack of playmaking and ability to cover downfield. They are the worst in the Big 12 statistically against the pass. Billy Bowman, freshman and nickel, he's playing pretty well. Pat Fields, one of their leading tacklers at safety. They got some guys they can count on to make tackles. Overall, covering, though, you're really not sure what you're going to get. I wouldn't expect too much from them. That's why their pass rush needs to step up. Tackling in space, it's gotten better, but overall it's still an issue, especially in open field. So this Oklahoma defense, they're not really playing up to expectations. I think the defensive line is really doing a lot of the heavy lifting, as I kind of figured they would. I also expected a lot better production out of guys in the secondary. So we'll see what happens here against Baylor, but I'm not too high on the Sooners defense, especially as we enter a tough November stretch. This Baylor defense, I mentioned earlier, I was really high on them coming in the year, and they've played very well for the most part. But last week, they were not good. Shredded by Chandler Morris, the backup for TCU, 460-plus passing yards allowed. Again, I didn't really watch the game, so I don't exactly know what happened. I just know they've really had struggles underneath this year. I did see a play, though, late where they had a miscommunication in the back end, sent a corner blitz, and the other DBs weren't aware. They didn't drop back in zone, and Quentin Johnson was wide open for a touchdown. That can't happen. They have to be on the same page, especially here against Oklahoma. I think they're going to clean things up. Dave Aranda will have these guys ready. Downfield, they haven't been bad, just inconsistent. I love the linebacking duo. They have Dylan Doyle, Terrell Bernard, perennial playmakers for this defense. And then you look at Jalen Pitre, probably one of the best hybrid players in the nation. He leads them in tackles for loss. He's one of their top pure tacklers as well. He's one of 5 seniors in the secondary. They can put Pitre at linebacker, nickel, put him deep at safety. I love this guy. He can cover, he can make plays coming off the edge. He's just so good. And you're going to hear his name a lot on Saturday. The defensive line, it's 3-3-5 defense. Ika, one of my favorite defensive tackles in college football. Coming into the year, I was really excited to see how he played. I'd say he's playing pretty well with 6'4", 350, similar size to Vita Vea. I don't think he has the same motor by any means, but he gets his hands up. He's good at driving people back. Very excited to see how he plays here in a big game. Gabe Hall and T.J. Franklin, both 290 pounds. So they got some pretty solid size on this defensive line. Controlling the line of scrimmage is going to be important against this offensive line that's, inconsistent. They're not very well. They're not very good. So I think they have a nice little favorable matchup here. We'll see what happens. They're only allowing 20.6 points per game. I like this Baylor defense. I think they're going to have a pretty good game here. Dave Aranda, last week was the one game they really had their issues. They gave up a lot of rushing yards to Oklahoma State and Iowa State. Not a lot, just a fair amount for the opposition. This defense all around this year has been pretty good, and they should be even better after a bad game. In that team comparisons, quarterback, I got to give it to Caleb Williams. You look what he's done as a dual threat playmaker, decision making. It's really top notch. This offense is starting to click on all cylinders like we expected them to do with Spencer, with all the weapons they have. Despite some of the inconsistencies up front, they've really played good, much better with Caleb Williams at quarterback. And they're still playing a lot of close games, though, but not as many over the last couple of weeks. Granted, the competition's fairly different, but Williams, he gets the edge at quarterback, running back. You got to give it to this Baylor running game. Abraham Smith, Tristan Ebner, these guys are doing tremendous work, 230-plus yards per game. Nice 1-2 punch they have, especially for being bigger backs. They don't have great explosiveness by any means, but they're plenty capable of doing everything that's asked of them. Wide receiver, Oklahoma gets the edge. The depth is insane. I love the duo of Snead and Thornton. Other than that, though, the depth isn't even comparable to Oklahoma's. They have the second best receiving group in the nation, so they get the edge there. You look at offensive line, it's not going to be Oklahoma. Baylor, they have a handful of transfers that came over. They're playing pretty good. Grant Miller, right guard, Jacob Gall at center. This offensive line's been playing very well. They get a much better push up front than Oklahoma does by a pretty wide margin. Pass protection, they could be iffy themselves at times, but I like this offensive line. I think they're playing much better than anticipated. Regardless of my thoughts, though, I think most people can agree that this offensive line is better than Oklahoma's at this moment in time. Look at the defensive line. Oklahoma has the edge there. Their second deepest position on their roster, I think, is up front with that front four they have. Isaiah Thomas, he's playing very good football. Nick Benito, I'd like to see him get a little bit more done. Perion Winfrey, though, a defensive tackle, he's probably going to be an All-American, at least in the conference. He's doing some good things as a pass rusher. These guys have all the opportunities in the world to control how this game plays out, because it starts with your defensive line up front, especially with the secondary struggling. If they play well, that's going to really help their secondary out immensely. So you defensive line, expect big things from them on Saturday. Looking at linebacker, the edge goes to Baylor. They'll drop Pitre down there and make it even better. The veterans, I don't know if I mentioned, there's 5 seniors in that secondary, Blanchard and Pitre. They're both seniors as well. So veteran unit, unlike Oklahoma, that's why they get the edge in the secondary as well. So I like this defense all around for Baylor. Oklahoma, it's kind of questionable, though. They've really struggled to tackle in space. They've been pretty good against the run. When their defensive line's not consistent, though, they really struggle. So, again, that's going to be the biggest talking point for the Sooners' defense. Looking at the keys to the game in prediction, Oklahoma, they got to get some pass rush. The secondary needs help. They got weapons. Baylor does that are going to burn you downfield. Cannot give Gary Bohannon time. That zone will get carved up. He's shown he's plenty capable of doing so this year. He had a great game against West Virginia. Pretty good defensive backfield. They have one of the best defensive backs in college football in Alonzo Addy, and that didn't matter. They got torched that game. So if you can't get some pass rush, that's likely going to happen to you. And you can't get overpowered up front. You got to get some kind of push with your running game. I believe in Caleb Williams to carry the offense if he has to, especially with the receivers he has. But I don't think you want to win a game like that. You want to get it done as easy as possible and controlling the line of scrimmage just a tad to get 4 yards per carry, something like that. Just a little bit of balance. That's going to be big for them as well. For Baylor, you got to get off the field on third down. Oklahoma, as I mentioned earlier, 50% on the year on third, 7th in college football. That's really absurd. So even this late in the year, so they got to get off the field and can't allow Williams to extend plays. He's shown the ability to do that this year in all different types of ways, whether it's running around or just yanking the ball from his running back's hands and getting the first down. He's been phenomenal with his legs mainly. Whether he's trying to run the ball or he's trying to make some plays while evading to throw it downfield. That's really going to burn you. Doesn't matter how good your secondary is. If Williams can dance around a bit, he's going to find an open guy or he's going to make a good throw. So that's going to be a big key for the Bears. Prediction, I have Baylor winning 38-34. I think this defense is just too big of a question mark. Playing at Waco is really tough. I like what Dave Aranda has here going on with the Bears. Yeah, they knocked themselves out of playoff consideration last week with a loss due to their defense getting shredded. That's not going to happen 2 weeks in a row under this guy in Aranda. I think they're going to show up. Offense is a very favorable matchup. I don't see how Baylor doesn't win this game, especially with Oklahoma playing all these close games. It's kind of reminiscent of Florida State and Jameis Winston's second year. They played a bunch of close games. They've played a good opponent, and they got blasted. So I think you're going to see some here. Oklahoma's going to keep pace, though, but Baylor, I think they'll win this game 38-34. Wouldn't be shocked if they won by double figures, but the Bears should definitely win this game.